Welcome to Expert Profiles Atlanta, where Atlanta's influencers and innovators share strategies for overcoming obstacles and achieving success in business and life. Here's your host, best-selling author and Atlanta influencer, Neil Howe.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today's guest is Tom Berger. He provides mentoring to entrepreneurs and private company CEOs on a wide variety of business topics. He does this all pro bono and has been doing it for 8 years. He likes to say that he helps individuals avoid the mistakes that he has made over his career, but inadvertently he may help them make some more. Although he has a high-tech background, he has found that business issues are the same across virtually every type of business. He has been involved with companies that vary from high-tech to hunting clothing apparel to a screenwriter who has written a script for a superhero movie. His engagements vary from a few hours to multiple sessions over several months. And he doesn't advertise his services and maintains a low-key profile, selecting clients on an individual basis. In addition to his pro bono consulting work, Tom takes his 2 golden retrievers named Smith & Wesson to local schools where he spends time with special needs kids. Since 2011, Tom and his boys, as he refers to them, have made 432 school visits. In his spare time, he also enjoys woodworking, shooting, model railroading, and boating. Well, you've got a fair career going on there, Tom. So anyway, welcome to the show. Looking forward to hearing what you got to say.
Good. Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Well, hey, let's start with those golden retrievers. I love golden retrievers. I've got one myself. They are great dogs, aren't they?
Oh, they certainly are. And it's in the family. My daughter has one. My one son has 2. And my other son just lost one not too long ago. But they're great dogs. And it's so much fun taking them to the schools and watching these kids who have all kinds of special needs. But they'll lay on the dogs, they'll pull on their faces, sit on them. The dogs just take it.
Yeah, they are awesome with kids. I got lots of kids myself and just great family dogs. But let's hear more about you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Tom, and your career, that you've had and got all this experience from. Now you're doing pro bono stuff, but tell me what gave you all this experience.
Okay, well, I've got a bachelor's and a master's degree in electrical engineering, and I worked for large companies for 22 years, including 17 years at Motorola, I like to say in their glory days. And I had a variety of different positions. I was a point-to-point, a microwave application engineer working with customers. I was in sales and product marketing and product management. And I did 2 things which were rather unique. First, I took a group of engineers out of the labs and we developed an automatic vehicle location product, tracking cars. And this was back in the early 80s. And you could say it was well ahead of its time. The other thing, I formed Motorola's wireless data network. And today, none of us can live without texting. Well, we introduced texting to the marketplace in 1985. Unfortunately, it didn't make it. The unit that we had, the handheld device, was just too big. So for both experiences, I like to tell people, timing is everything, and mine was terrible. So,
well, we've certainly come a long way since then, and we can't live without our phones, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, and after that, I was one of the founders of a joint venture between Motorola and IBM. And we built out the world's largest wireless data network. And primarily focused on business-to-business or field service applications. IBM, the field service techs, were our anchor customer. And after that, I got involved with true venture-backed startups. And over the years, ran 7 different ones. Almost all of them were they all were in telecom, primarily wireless telecom. And some were very successful, some were not, and which is, I guess, what happens in the venture business.
So now you've had this great career, you've got all this experience, and now you are helping entrepreneurs and CEOs. So exactly what are you doing for them? What kind of problems do you help them with?
Okay. Well, I'll back up just a little bit. I'm certainly not wealthy, but we've been doing this for 8 years. I like to say that you can never have too much money, but you can have enough. And my wife and I now, can afford to do this. So we help companies, individual entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting a business, to private companies that all are reaching different inflection points. Whether it's getting funding to begin with, I can help coach on that from my venture experience. I should have mentioned I was at a venture capital firm for 7 years during that startup era, not as a venture capitalist making investments, but as a operating partner, position they created for me, where I would actually look at deals, look at companies, and help them, and sometimes parachute in, and sometimes take them over. So what I found is it was kind of a revolution, or to me, that understanding that all companies face the same business problems. It's remarkable, but what I like to say is the variables are all the same. Some need more marketing than others. Some need sales. Some need product development. Everybody needs customer service, and so forth. The only difference is the coefficients. By that I mean what you have to emphasize at any given time. So what I found when I'm talking to an entrepreneur or a small company, they will have a problem of perhaps managing internal growth, or trying to figure out exactly what markets to pursue. So what it is that the experience I've had, as I said, doing a lot of things wrong, I have a whole bunch of arrows in my quiver. And based upon the particular issue, then we focus in on that particular issue. And as I said, it varies from how to handle personnel problems, how to handle dysfunctional boards, and there are such a thing, to just every other issue in between.
So what would you say the main problem that businesses have? Is it like an identity problem where they think that their business is different than all the others and they've got their own unique problems?
Yeah, that's very good, Neil. You're absolutely right. A lot of people have blinders on, and they can't imagine anybody being as good as they are. Now, to be an entrepreneur or owner of a private business, you have to have a big ego. You have to be very optimistic. The odds are stacked so far against you. If you aren't optimistic about it, you'd never start, or you'd quickly quit. So misunderstanding how long it takes to do things is one of the really critical issues, and thinking that what they are doing is so unique. So that's a big problem, and that's the reality that I have to share with them.
And how do you get an entrepreneur to step back and look at the business where, lots of times they just have that creative mind, they want to, drive forward with their new ideas, but there's a whole other, focus to think about, and that is actually running a successful and profitable business.
Exactly right. And what I will get into my website a little bit later on, but one of the articles I've written, and I usually lead with this, is CEO means Chief Everything Officer. Mm-hmm. And the entrepreneurs typically laugh, but they all agree with me. And I said, but where do you spend your time? Aren't you spending your time on what you like to do? And it's typically, if it's a technology guy, it's still involving product or sales and marketing. And I said, what about all the other elements? And I get them to thinking about those. And then I ask one question. It's one simple question, but it has 7 key words. It says, can you say, we solve a problem that customers agree needs to be solved and are willing to pay me for it now? Mm-hmm. And that simple little sentence, we can spend hours on that. Who is we? Are they doing it alone? Are they other partners? Are they really solving the problem, or are they solving part of it? And so forth. And I go through all those elements, and then we talk about the various different aspects, and the reality hits them how much more they have to do. Now, yeah. It's a fine line I draw, because you can make them feel like they've got this black cloud over their head that they can't possibly do all the things. So it's got to be toned with some optimism myself.
Mm-hmm. So what do you find the biggest mistake is that entrepreneurs make? I know that they can, get into business easily, that, they start something up, but then they encounter the real problems when things start to not work. What is the one big mistake that you see them make?
Their focus on money. They think that they need money and that's their biggest problem. Their biggest critical resource, which they don't realize, is their time. I like to tell them, you can always get more money. They roll their eyes at that, but you can't get more time. And what I ask them to do is think about every hour that they have as a silver bullet. Once it's fired, it's gone. It's gone forever. So making sure that they're spending their time on the right thing. And the thing they should be spending most of their time on is revenue. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my articles, I say revenue is the wonder drug. It fixes most everything.
Well, there's nothing happens until a sale is made, really. It's the sales that make the business grow, so that's got to take a lot of focus.
Absolutely right. And especially with technical entrepreneurs, they're so focused on getting a elegant product out the door, and then revenue will come later, and it really doesn't. The other thing I tell them that we've all heard the adage in the real estate business, the three most important things are location, location, location. Well, for startups, the three most important things are revenue, 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 but there's three different kinds of revenue. And most people don't understand that. The first is what I call referenceable revenue. It's not what you say, it's what other people do. You have to have some reference accounts. The second kind is scalable revenue. What do you do if you have to make 10 times the number of sales calls, or ship 10 times the number of products, or have 10 times the number of customers in each service? And then finally, there's profitable revenue. Without references and without scale, profitability won't happen. So making sure that companies focus on those three R's in that order is very, very important. And quite often, they're just going for it. We got to make a lot of money on the sale. No. What you need is referenceable accounts first.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, Tom, if you're sitting down with a new business, what does a consultation with you look like? Do you have to obviously you have to get their information first and what their business is and what their problems are, but how do you go from there?
Well, actually, in many cases with entrepreneurs, I don't even start with them providing me anything. I just sit down across the table and let them just start talking about the business. And the most important thing, of course, is their background and why they're doing this. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that any entrepreneur is running to something, not running away from it. It's a big, big difference. So many middle managers in corporate America are being let go, downsized, and they think I'm going to start a company. And they don't have any clue for the effort it takes. So I want to make sure their motive is not running away from where they are, but running to it. And then from that, we just talk about it. But somehow in that first conversation, I weave in that one sentence I mentioned, we solve a problem that customers agree. And that really gets the ball rolling. So what I try and do is ask them not to spend a lot of time preparing for me until we have that first meeting. Then what I try and do is say, let's focus on 1, 2, or maximum 3 things before we meet again. And those 3 things in general are not what they came in to see me about.
Mm-hmm. So what are those 3 things generally? Is there 3 things across the board that really every company needs to look into? Or is it 3 different things for different situations?
They vary quite a bit, but mostly they center around the customer. And are you truly solving a problem for the customer? What happens is I've seen so many companies have a great new widget. And they say, all the company has to do is integrate my widget into what they do. Customers have a very difficult time doing that. So they need to focus for product companies on the entire end-to-end solution, or even a SaaS company, on how is the customer going to extract value from what you're doing. And so you can have the greatest mousetrap in the world, but you've got to have things around it to support it. And that they miss quite often.
Right. And how big is marketing and sales, when it comes to making big mistakes? I think you just said it there. They've got this product or service that they believe if they build it, they will come.
Right, exactly. Well, unfortunately, I have a lot of colleagues in marketing, and I help a lot of marketing companies. Unfortunately, marketing is a infinite sink. You can spend every available dollar on marketing, and it doesn't really, and many of those dollars really aren't providing much value in return. What I emphasize with companies is follow what I call an epicenter model. And by that I mean sell in your local area and advertise in your local area. Think about relationships in your local area. And people don't realize this, but buying decisions are made from the heart, not the head. Mm-hmm. Okay, and having a giant nationwide list when you're in Marble Falls, Texas, or in Atlanta, Georgia, doesn't make it. And especially for the Atlanta companies that I help, which is primarily where I focus, I say, if you can't make it in Atlanta, you can't make it anywhere. Okay, this market is so large and diverse. So I say be very careful of where you spend your marketing dollars and really focus on how you can build local relationships. And the reason that's important is you will stumble. There's no question about it. You'll stumble with your first customers. You've got to be there locally to be able to support them any way that you can. So focus marketing and sales activities in your epicenter model where you are, and then slowly expand out from that.
Right, and that's great advice. But in the digital age that we live in, there's so many apps and different things that you can use. There's social platforms for trying to market your business, but ultimately it all comes down to a relationship. And it helps if you have many people that know you and understand you in your hometown. Is that the best way to go?
Absolutely right. And I should issue a cautionary note. Most of my focus is on business to business. I don't understand consumers. Okay, I'm the guy that this venture firm I was with invested in Skype, but I told them it was a stupid thing. They should never do it. They got 144 times return on investment. I'm the guy in 1999 that said there'd never be a practical use for a camera and a cell phone. I'm the guy that said ringtones will never be a business. So what I do know is when it comes to consumer buying habits, people should listen to what I say and do the opposite.
Yes, well, that might be some great advice there, Tom. So tell me a little bit about the whole pro bono work. Why is it that you have spent so much of your most valuable asset now of your time, and do you do this for free?
As I said before, actually because I can.
Mm-hmm.
It's another line that I use, but I truly believe is we all have to remember those behind us. And if I can help people do things right, not like I did them, but get it right the first time, I feel that's just a great calling. Let me go back and explain how I got this position. When I left Motorola and joined this as a founder of this joint venture, I immediately started noticing different things between large companies and small companies. And for example, people in large companies are focused on not losing, where people in small companies are focused on winning. Right. Subtle but important difference. Anyhow, I started jotting down notes and put it in Excel, and that was in 1990. And I kept those notes all these years. That list grew to be 983 items long. Now, some of them are trivial, but some of them are not. Some, I think, are pretty profound. And about 2.5 years ago, I started writing. And I've written 492 short articles, about 800 words each. And I put them on a website. It's my CXO Atlas website. We'll talk more about that later. But and people say, oh, this is great content. You should sell that content. And I really feel guilty because these mistakes I made and the successes I had, although they're limited, were really based upon me working with other people and other people helping me. And I said, here it is. I'm going to put this information out there. And again, people say, you can make money on this. And I said, sounds crazy, but my goal was to write this stuff down. Whether people read it or not, that's their choice. So that's what drove me, is just emptying my head with all these things that I've learned over all these years that might be able to help other people.
Well, it sounds like that you're definitely that educator and the advocate for the success of the people that you help. And, ultimately, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for somebody that has their best interest at heart to make the right decisions. And it certainly seems that that is exactly what you do when you're not asking for anything in return. That's got to make people feel that you're giving your best advice always.
Exactly. In fact, a few companies, I'm on their quote advisory boards, and just recently 2 companies have suggested giving me stock in the companies. And again, I'm not wealthy, but the amount I think they had in mind wouldn't move my personal wealth needle. But I said no. And the reason I said no is I want you to know that I'm always going to be objective. And anybody else that talks to me about the company knows that I don't have, a dog in the hunt. Okay, so just maintain pure objectivity is my goal.
Well, that is great. So let's talk about some of the fears that some business owners have. What scares them? What keeps them up at night? What do they really struggle with? And how can they get over some of these things?
Yeah, the big thing is a priority. They've got so many things in their to-do list. And in fact, I joke with them when they bring this up. I said, the great thing about being an entrepreneur, you never have to worry about not having things to worry about. There's always plenty out there that can go wrong. So what I tell them, I said, take a methodical approach. And I said, the first question that you have to answer, and you should actually, I say, you should tape this on the screen of your computer, is should versus could. What happens is so many new companies think, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. But should you do it? And prioritizing the difference between could and should is incredibly important. And once I get people to really focus in on that discipline, they start sleeping a lot better at night.
Mm-hmm.
The one example I give CEOs when the company is now they're up and operational, anywhere from 10 to on up people. I said, when the phone rings with the oh my God, or you get the email from somebody that a crisis occurs or somebody comes flying in your door, I said, the first thing you should do is take a deep breath. I said, then you count to 100 by 17s. People say, what? I said, yeah, you have to think about that. Now I'm way past that. I do 23s, 27s. But I said, then you ask one question, is this fatal? If it's fatal, you drop what you're doing and you address it. Fatal for the company. If it's not fatal, then you say, who is the best person besides me to handle this? Mm-hmm. If it keeps coming back to you, you got a problem. Okay, so it's this prioritization, and the could versus should is so incredibly important for people to understand.
All right. And what's the biggest mistake that you see companies making over and over again?
Trying to go after too many markets instead of being focused. They're so afraid of losing a sale in this adjunct market that they spread themselves too thin with different products or different or going after different geographical or different sectors. And narrow down. Don't worry about going after the biggest market. Again, one of the lines I use in one of the articles I've written is you choke to death much faster than you starve. Very crude line, but I heard the entrepreneur, geez, if I could only get that Walmart account. Oh, how many units have you shipped? Well, we shipped 50. But you want to go after Walmart, huh? Right. Why don't you go after the local mom and pop deli first? So it's going after too many markets or having too broad a product or service offering it's typically fatal.
Right, that's definitely something I believe in as well. And even within your own market, even within one market, you can even specialize down to one area of your market, just like you said, keep it to one area of your hometown before expanding. Once you've made that name for yourself with whatever you do, you can expand from there, but you got to get the first things right.
Yeah, and I help companies do that with what I call a rail diagram. What I say is come up with 10 or 12 characteristics about the worst possible customer you could have and the best. And the worst possible customer might be somebody that only buys on price and is always open to litigation, wants to sue everybody, as opposed to somebody else that really understands the value and is looking for a partner. And you just go on, come up with absolute extremes. Okay, and some can be, almost ridiculous extremes, but extremes. And then when you get a, quote, opportunity, unquote, just pull that chart out and say, where are they? Are they closer to that rail or are they closer to the other rail? So in the excitement of hearing about a prospect, which I really call suspects until you go through this exercise, it's so easy to chase what you think are revenue opportunities. And what does it do? It robs you of that silver bullet called time. So people need to focus on flushing the funnel, sales funnel, not filling it. And you want to flush it down to the bottom with an order or get it out of the funnel as quickly as you can if it's not a customer in your sweet spot.
So how do you get over that mindset with your clients that they want to go after everybody because they fear that they're going to be losing that dollar, and they are not working with their ideal customers? How do you get them to say no, basically, and just concentrate on spending the time with those ones that are going to be easy, lucrative, and fun?
It's really very easy. I ask them to go back and, based on the business, maybe a month, look at the proposals that you've generated, or look at the emails or customers that you or prospects you've talked to. How many came to fruition? And they answer the question themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I keep coming back to my silver bullet and the time element. I said, just think, all the time you spend on those 5, wouldn't it have been better to spend 5 times more time on that one that's right in your sweet spot? So it's one of the things. It's what I do is I just bring up what they already know, but are not really willing consciously to admit. But they know it's there.
Right. They just need a little help in their corner to make sure that they're staying on the right tracks, as it were.
Right.
So, Tom,
exactly.
Give me an example of somebody that you've helped. What kind of issues were they having before you stepped in and were able to guide them? And ultimately, what were the solutions you provided? And what was the outcome for the business or the entrepreneur?
Well, there's one that's actually going on right now in real time. The company calls Ashland Communications, and it's run by a brilliant, very experienced woman, Melissa Gordon. And what she focuses in on is coaching individuals and groups and how to get their message across. In fact, she has it's trademarked, but she has a whole program called Speak Like You Mean It. And working with Melissa, she is absolutely great. Seeing her in action is amazing, and the impact she has on people is also amazing. She, a big part of her career, she spent working at General Electric, coaching from Jeff Elmwood almost on down, all the executives. Now, she brings that experience to many companies, primarily here in Atlanta. What I found, though, Melissa is such a wealth of information and knowledge and has so many great things to say that it's hard for her to focus, or for a listener to hear it. Everything resonates, but if somebody does what I'm doing now, goes one point right after you have to, it's hard for it to grasp onto things. So what Melissa and I are doing right now as we speak, we're dramatically simplifying her message. And just in the last couple of weeks, I think it's had a profound impact on the way she views her business and the way others are responding to it as well. So very, very simplifying her business so that, I like to say, mere mortals like myself can really grasp what she's doing. So that's a good example of somebody that is a great subject matter expert, but actually knows too much. It needs to, if you will, simplify her offering.
Right, and ultimately, you need to keep it simple in order to make sales. The more confusion there is, the less chance there is of somebody making a sale. So that is some great advice, Tom.
Yeah.
Well, Tom,
okay. I was gonna say, if I can, what I tell her and everybody do, it's not what you say, it's what other people hear, remember, and repeat that's important.
Right.
You want other people doing the talking for you.
Exactly. Well, Tom, tell us a little bit more about how people can get in contact with you and get in touch with you if they're needing some of your expert advice here for their business.
Okay, well, the first thing I do is direct them to my website, which is CXO-Atlas, or just CXO Atlas. That site, as I said, has 492 articles, all divided into volumes and chapters and sections. Volume 3 is 88 articles about starting and running a company, or starting a company. The other one's about running a company. I'd strongly suggest that people check that out. And you can browse, read, and download. The only requirement, if you want to download a PDF file, you just need to give me your email address, which I don't sell. I don't care about that. Mm-hmm. So I'd say that'd be the primary thing. If they want to contact me, they can do it through the website, tom@cxoatlas.com, and that will get to me also. So it's a double thing. That's how you get to me, and that's what I'd like you to do, is check out this site.
Well, there's a wealth of information, all those thousands of articles there, which is awesome. Great place to start for sure. Tom, it has been a pleasure this morning listening to you and hearing all your great advice for entrepreneurs and business owners. Thank you very much for being a guest on Expert Profiles Atlanta.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
Thank you for listening to Expert Profiles Atlanta with Neil Howe. To learn more about the resources in the show or to listen to past episodes, visit expertprofilesatlanta.com.